What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Jersey Joe Show, place where we talk about a little bit of everything, but mostly hockey. And so, I know a lot of the times we have jokes, we have fun, we kind of just joke around, talk some hockey, but sometimes we need to get a little serious, and I just, I do think that you need to spend some time and just reflect on things that are really important and kind of just go beyond the world of sports. And so I think today it'll just be something nice to do if we just have a brief moment of silence for the New York Rangers season, which tragically ended this weekend. So please just bear with me as we give them a moment of respect.
In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark cold hotel.
Alright, guys, welcome back. And today we have a lot to talk about. So, the past week or so, the Devils have had a lot of different scenarios going on right now. So, the first one is the comeback win in overtime versus Ottawa, followed by the shutout loss to San Jose Sharks on Friday, and then Palmieri getting hurt in practice on Sunday and Corey Schneider getting hurt against Ottawa. So there's a number of different things at play that I'd like to talk about. So let's just start with the Ottawa game. That was easily the most exciting game of hockey I've seen all season from the Devils. Not in a good way. I do, of course, always wish that we never go down by 2 goals and have to come back and win in overtime. But when they do it, it's very exciting. And really, it was one of those games where you saw that heart, that grit that this new team has. And it's something that's been missing for the past couple of years. So I'm really happy to see that. I'm happy to see the team not just sit down and die after the end of the second period when they're down 4-2. They come back and they win it. And you see Nico Hischier with his first ever NHL goal, followed by his second goal. He's now on for 7 points in, I believe, 8 games. And so he's just on fire. He's exactly what we expected when we drafted him. He's everything that we need and everything we wanted. He's now pretty solidified there as that top line center. Zacha got demoted to the third line. It's not something I'm happy about, but it makes sense based on the circumstances. Now that we have Zacha, I do think, now that we have Hischier, I do think Zacha fits better on the wing. But our center depth, without Boyle, without Zajac, Zacha needs to slot in somewhere in center. And you're not going to knock out Henrique, so you got to put him down to the third line. And frankly, he's been a bit underwhelming. I know he tore it up in the preseason, but the past couple of games, it just doesn't seem like he's really wanting to be there. I'm not seeing a lot of passion from him. I know he's a quiet guy. But even when I went to the game on Friday against San Jose, it was very obvious that he was kind of just... It's not that he wasn't trying, he doesn't have that passion that I see coming from all the other players like Brod or Hischier or even Taylor Hall now. He's just very laid back. He's going through the motions. He's doing okay, but he's not a top 10 pick that we drafted him at. He's not living up to that right now. And people are noticing it. A lot of the media pundits are saying that Zacha's not really the best pick in that, or Zacha really should have been dropped to probably 15th or even 20th overall that draft. There's a lot of people behind him, like Zach Orensky, who are doing phenomenal for themselves, and Zacha's really lagging behind. And you have to wonder if that's an attitude problem, if that's just where he is. He's just not as good as we thought. Maybe he's a late bloomer. There's a lot of questions with him, and it's unfortunate because he's not going to be able to find his stride sitting on the third line. He needs to be getting top-line minutes, but there's no room for him right now, and that's just the unfortunate reality we have. And Zacha's been one of my favorite players because I know what he can be. When he's on, he's one of the best players on the ice. We saw that in the preseason. We saw that when he had a 2-goal game, I believe it was against Buffalo. He can have great games, but he's just not consistent, and he's a bit streaky. And he was even benched against the Rangers 2 weeks ago, so... There's a lot to be really said about Zacha, and we don't know what we have in him. But regardless, the Ottawa game ended with a John Moore overtime goal. He has the most overtime goals by any active defenseman, which is something I didn't realize. I know John Moore's had quite a few number of overtime goals for us, but I never realized he was the leader in them in terms of active defensemen. And if you saw the play, Taylor Hall really set everything up. I'm not sure if this is exactly what it was, but it looked like he was faking a shift change and he was going back to the bench, which made the Ottawa players go to their bench. And the second he saw them move towards their bench, he completely turned around and fired the puck at John Moore, who was wide open because the defense was in the middle of a change. So he kind of did like a bluff change that forced the D to go back to their bench and left the Devils wide open. And Anderson kind of let in a weak shot. I'm not going to lie. I think he should have had that, but it doesn't matter. He didn't get it, and John Moore gets the overtime goal, and the Devils end up being a 6-1-0 team, which, again, is blowing my expectations. But they came out a bit gassed against the San Jose Sharks the next day because they were down 4-2 against Ottawa. Came back, tied it up 4-4 with about 4 minutes left on a Marcus Johansson goal. And against the Sharks are big bodies, and they're going to punish you if you're slow. And we weren't our normal speedy selves. We weren't slow, but we definitely weren't at the level we were against Buffalo or against Ottawa. We weren't skating circles around anyone. And San Jose is a much bigger team than us, and that's the game they played. We ended up playing towards San Jose's type of style. Slow, possession-based hockey, and we paid for it. We had a number of chances, hit a bunch of posts. Martin Jones just went on he was just on another level the whole game. It should have been probably like a 4-3, 5-3 game in the Devils' favor, but they didn't because Jones was just saving them all. Whereas Kincaid, while he had a great game, he let in a couple of goals that honestly he should have saved. At least one of them went right through his legs. I don't think he was screened at all. I don't think it was tipped. He just wasn't expecting it for some reason. It was a quick pass to the slot, and they threw it right underneath his legs, and I think that was the first goal they scored. And from there, we just kind of fell apart. You could tell we were gassed, and you can tell that we were traveling from Ottawa the night before, and we had just played an overtime game against one of the best teams in the East. So it's just one of those games that you just have to say, we had everything against us, and nothing was going our way. Let's just focus on the next game, which for some weird reason is a week later, and it's not even our bye week. So we have a bye week in January, which is where we have 7 days and no games. Every team has to have it just to kind of fit the scheduling, especially now that there's no Olympic break. And for some reason, the Devils had a weird scheduling blip where they had no games between Friday against San Jose and next Friday versus Ottawa, which is another game I'm going to. So I'm pretty excited about that. But in between now and then, there's actually a couple questions that need to be answered, though. So Corey Schneider left halfway through the Ottawa game, and Kincaid came in for relief, and he did fine. If you watch the replays and the recap of the Ottawa game, and if you take a look at Schneider, you start to see a couple of weird things. It's not that he played gingerly, but he didn't look like Schneider in net in terms of actual goalie style. He wasn't dropping into the butterfly position as much. His post-to-post was very slow, and it looked like something was very wrong with him. And it looked like he might have hurt himself on one of the cross-crease plays that the Ottawa Senators did, where I think they scored their second or third goals, because he sticks his leg out weird, and he doesn't make it all the way across the other post. Normally he would, but he kind of stops in the middle of the crease and falls and tries to make a desperation save with his stick, which doesn't work. And from then on, it just looked very strange. It didn't look like we had Corey Schneider in net. It looked like we had someone completely different back there. And he leaves by, I believe, in between the second and third period. Kincaid comes in. We get the win. And then Schneider's put on the injured reserve. And they're saying it's day-to-day and that he was supposed to be reevaluated today, but I haven't heard anything. We don't know anything beyond the fact that he didn't go to practice. And then on Sunday, Palmieri gets boarded, and now he's out, and he's day-to-day. So we have Kyle Palmieri and Corey Schneider both really questionable for the next couple of games. And so that's a big worry. Is Kincaid going to fill in those shoes? I'm sure. I'm not worried about Kincaid. And we have enough offensive power to really make up for the lack of a Palmieri on the top right wing. I think Jesper Bratt will probably go back up there on the first line with Hischier and Hall. but it's gonna be tougher. And for a team that's honestly overachieving at this point at 6-2-0, and all the advanced stats are against us, you really don't want two of your best players out. Even if you can make up the slack, you still don't want to really give a regression any sort of chance by having those players out. But we have some good news. Brian Boyle has been cleared for full contact practice. Fortunately, he's been out for so long that this is essentially his training camp, and so we probably won't see him in action for at least a week, 2 weeks, definitely not for next Friday, but he's a warrior. He's an awesome locker room presence. The fan base loves him already. He hasn't even played a single game yet. He's going to be a really awesome addition to that bottom line. I think Coleman's going to slot over. Might have to take out Wood. I don't like the way Wood's been playing. I think he had 3 penalties on Friday against San Jose. He just wasn't impressing me. He wasn't playing good hockey. He wasn't really in control of himself. They weren't horrible penalties. It was one of those stupid slashing calls where they tapped the gloves, but it's a penalty. And he had a number of them, and I believe San Jose capitalized on at least 1 or 2 of those. It's just, it's not something you want to see in your bottom pairing. They're there to really just keep the game from going out of control, to keep the puck in the offensive zone, not to be causing penalties, not to be really forcing you on the PK. That's not what they're there for. And so I do think that Boyle comes in, Coleman slots over, Gibbons is now on the third line. It's a shuffling roster. Things are changing every game, but Boyle's going to make it better no matter where he is. He's probably the best fourth-line center in the league, and like I said, he's an awesome, awesome locker room presence, so I think the Devils will be really happy to have him back. But that was the past week. 2 games, a couple of injuries, and now we're on to Ottawa on Friday and Arizona on Saturday. So look for my analysis and in-depth talk about those 2 games sometime next week. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care.